The Marked One. The sky over planet Solara was always gray. Cold winds moved across the land, carrying dust and silence. In the middle of a large empty field stood a small alien girl named Lyari. Her skin was soft blue, and her eyes glowed a faint silver. She was only 16 cycles old, but today she stood alone. Her back burned. She could feel something glowing there, something red. She didn't know what it was, but the pain had started early that morning. When her mother saw the glowing mark, her face turned white with fear. "You must leave," her mother whispered, tears in her eyes. "The elders will call you cursed." Lyari didn't understand. She had never hurt anyone. She always followed the rules. She was kind, quiet, and respectful. Why was a strange mark on her body such a big problem? But rules were rules. In Lyari's tribe, purity was everything. Anyone who looked different or changed in any strange way was called impure, and the impure were not allowed to stay. Now she stood at the edge of the village, surrounded by cold eyes. Elders wore long dark robes. Warriors held sharp spears. No one came close to her. No one wanted to touch her. The High Elder stepped forward. His voice was deep and without feeling. "You are marked, Lyari. You are no longer one of us. You must go." Lyari's eyes filled with tears. "But I didn't choose this. I don't even know what it is." "It doesn't matter. The mark is a curse. It brings danger. Leave now, or we will make you leave." Her heart broke, but she turned away. With nothing but a thin robe, she walked into the cold winds of the Forbidden Zone, a place full of old ruins, broken machines, and strange lights. No one ever returned from there. Hours passed. Lyari walked until her feet hurt. Her body was cold, and her mark still burned. She sat near a broken pillar and looked at the sky. "Why me?" she whispered. Suddenly, the ground shook. A loud sound filled the air, like a roar from the sky. She looked up and saw fire falling from the clouds. A metal object was crashing fast. It hit the ground far away with a deep explosion. Lyari stood up. Her fear was strong, but so was her curiosity. She walked toward the smoke. Maybe it was a sign. Maybe something was waiting for her. When she reached the crash site, she saw a broken ship, unlike anything she had seen before. It was silver, sharp, and full of lights. Strange writing covered its side. From the smoke, a figure walked out, tall, wearing dark armor and holding a strange glowing weapon. His skin was not blue. His hair was short. His eyes sharp. He was human. Lyari froze. She had only heard stories about humans. Dangerous, powerful, wild. But this one looked at her with calm eyes. Then, he looked at her mark. His eyes widened, not with fear, but with shock. He dropped to one knee in front of her. You are the one," he said quietly. Lyari stepped back, confused. "What do you mean?" The man stood slowly. His voice was soft, but serious. "My name is Captain Darren. I came here looking for the one with the mark. I didn't think I would really find you." Lyari looked at him, still afraid. "Everyone says the mark is a curse, that I am impure." Darren shook his head. "No, that mark, it's not a curse. It's a signal, a call. It's very old, older than your village, maybe even older than your world." She touched her back, feeling the heat of the symbol. "Then, what does it mean?" Darren looked into her eyes. "It means you're not alone anymore, and it means your people were lied to." Before she could ask more, a loud beeping sound came from Darren's device. He turned, his face turning serious. "We have to move. Now." Lyari looked around. In the distance, metal drones were flying fast toward them. Red lights blinked on their sides. "They're here to kill me," she whispered. "No," Darren said, raising his weapon. "They'll have to go through me first." The warrior's secret. The sky over Solara darkened as black clouds gathered above the Forbidden Zone. Cold wind howled through the broken ruins. Behind the smoke of the crashed human ship, Laeri and Captain Darren stood side by side, one marked by a mysterious red symbol, the other holding a weapon from a world far away. Laeri stared at the human soldier. Her hands were shaking, not from fear, but from the unknown. She had never seen anyone like him. Strong, confident, calm, so different from her own people who had cast her away. "Why are they chasing me?" she asked softly, looking at the approaching drones in the sky. Darren didn't answer right away. He scanned the area with his glowing device, eyes focused. Then he looked at her with serious eyes. "Because you have something they fear, and something I came to protect." The red mark on her back glowed brighter for a second. It was reacting to something. Maybe the danger, maybe to Darren himself. The buzzing of the drones grew louder. Darren grabbed Laeri's hand. "Run." They moved fast, across broken stone and twisted metal. Darren led her down into the remains of an old building, half buried in the ground. The door closed behind them, just as laser fire struck the wall outside. Inside, everything was quiet. Dust floated in the air. Strange machines stood lifeless along the walls. Lights flickered above. Laeri looked around in wonder. "What is this place?" Darren touched a small screen. It lit up, showing a map. "This used to be a research station, hundreds of years ago. A place where your people and mine once worked together." Laeri's eyes widened. "That's not possible. My people say we've always lived alone. We never trusted others." Darren looked at her with a half smile. "That's because someone made sure you forgot." He opened a metal door at the back of the room. Inside was a strange machine. In the center stood a glowing crystal surrounded by writing in both human and alien languages. Darren pointed. "This is what I came to find. This is called a beacon core. Long ago, both our races placed these on planets to find someone special." Laeri took a slow step closer. The red mark on her back pulsed again, this time in sync with the glowing crystal. Darren watched her carefully. "Your mark. It's not random. It's part of the beacon system. It activates when someone with the right DNA is born." Laeri turned sharply. "DNA? You mean my blood?" "Yes," he said. "Your blood is different. It carries both human and alien code. You're part of something ancient, something powerful." She stared at him, confused and a little afraid. "But how can that be? My parents are both from the tribe." "Not everything you've been told is the truth," Darren said gently. "Your people may not even know. It may go back generations. Or it was hidden on purpose." Laeri felt the walls close in around her. Everything she believed, her family, her home, her identity, was changing. "I don't want to be different," she whispered. Darren stepped closer. "Being different is not a weakness. It's the reason you're still alive." Before she could answer, the floor shook again. An explosion above made dust fall from the ceiling. "They're breaking in," Darren said. "We can't stay here." He pulled out a small disc and threw it on the ground. A portal opened, glowing blue. Laeri hesitated. "Where does it go?" "Somewhere safe. I promise." She looked at him. In his eyes, she saw something no one else had shown her. Trust. She stepped through the portal. They appeared in a large underground chamber. The walls were covered in old symbols and carvings. Some showed humans and aliens side by side. Others showed a red mark, just like Laeri's. She turned slowly, amazed. "This place. It's called the Sanctum," Darren said. "A hidden base. It was built by those who believed in unity between our races." On a raised platform stood a chair surrounded by lights. Darren walked over and touched a screen. A hologram appeared, an old alien figure with white eyes and a calm voice. "If you see this message, it means the beacon has chosen. The marked one has arrived. The protector must guide her. The truth must be revealed." The message ended. Laeri stepped back, her breath caught in her throat. I don't know if I'm ready for this." Darren looked at her. You don't have to be ready. You just have to be willing. Suddenly, a red light blinked on his device, a warning. They'd found us again. Liari looked up. They won't stop, will they? Darren shook his head. No, because you are the key to something they want to destroy. She stood taller. The fear in her eyes changed to determination. Then we fight. Darren smiled for the first time. Yes, but not alone. He opened a chamber door, and inside stood old tech, weapons, and a small hovering ship. Time to show the galaxy what the Impure can do. Escape and truths. Beneath the surface of Solara, the secret base known as the Sanctum hummed softly with old energy. Strange lights ran along the walls like veins. Symbols from long-forgotten languages lit up as Liari walked by. The red mark on her back was glowing again, warm this time, not burning. Beside her, Captain Darren checked his device. It was flashing red. The enemy was closing in. The drones from Liari's village. And something else, stronger, faster, more dangerous. They were hunting them both now. But Liari wasn't the same girl who had stood in the snow, abandoned by her people. Not anymore. She had been called impure. She had been told she was cursed. But the truth was far greater and far more terrifying. Are we safe here? Liari asked, her voice steady. For now, Darren said, but not for long. This base wasn't made for war. It was made for peace. Long ago. Liari turned toward a glowing panel. It showed a moving star map, planets, galaxies, and old human colonies spread across space. She pointed at one. What is that? Darren looked at it. Earth. My home. Or what's left of it. Her eyes widened. What do you mean? He sighed, stepping forward. Years ago, Earth was poisoned. A sickness spread through the population. People began to die. Fast. Our scientists believed there was a cure, hidden somewhere in the stars. He pointed at the red mark on her back. That symbol, it's not just a signal. It's a genetic map. A key. Your body carries a code that can save my people. Liari froze. You think I'm a cure? She asked, feeling anger rise in her chest. So that's why you came? To use me? Darren shook his head, his voice firm but gentle. No, I came because of the beacon. I didn't know what, or who, I would find. But now that I've met you, I'm not here to use you. I'm here to protect you. She looked into his eyes. For a moment, the storm inside her calmed. But why would my people lie about all of this? She whispered. Why say the mark is a curse? Darren walked toward an old metal console. He pressed a button. A hologram appeared, showing a group of alien elders, including the very same High Elder who had banished Liari. One of them was speaking. If the girl is born, she must be hidden. The mark is too powerful. If the humans return, she will be their link. Our people will never follow her. The message ended. Liari's legs shook. She fell to her knees. They knew. They knew the truth and still threw me away. Darren knelt beside her. Because power scares people. Because change threatens control. She clenched her fists. Then they don't deserve power anymore. A low rumble echoed through the base. An alarm lit up on the wall. Breached perimeter. Hostiles entering sub-level 3. Darren stood quickly. They're inside. Liari wiped her face, stood, and walked toward the armory. Rows of old tech lined the walls. Weapons and suits from another time. She grabbed a small device and strapped it to her wrist. What are you doing? Darren asked. Fighting, she said simply. Darren smiled again, a mix of pride and concern. You've changed. No, Liari said. I've just started becoming who I really am. Suddenly, the wall exploded. A massive Solaran enforcer stepped in. Tall, armored, eyes glowing red. It pointed its weapon at Liari. Impure detected. Eliminate. Darren fired first. His blast hit the enforcer's chest. pushing it back, but it didn't fall. Liari stepped forward. She raised her hand, and to her surprise, a red light burst from her palm. The mark on her back glowed like fire. The light wrapped around the enforcer like chains, holding it still. She fell to her knees, shocked. What was that? Darren helped her up. You just unlocked part of the beacon's power. They ran through the corridor as more enemies entered the base. The entire sanctum was under attack. Darren activated another portal. I know where we need to go next. Liari didn't ask this time. She stepped into the light without fear. They arrived in an open valley, under a purple sky. In the center stood the ruins of a tall tower. Around it were broken ships and fallen manors, both human and Salaran. This was once a base of unity, Darren said, a place where both sides tried to live together. It didn't last. He walked to the tower entrance. There's something inside I want to show you. They entered. Inside was a wide hall covered in carvings and symbols. At the far end stood the statue of a woman who looked like Liari, with a child in her arms and the red mark on her back. Liari stared in silence. She was the first, Darren said, a child of both worlds, just like you. Liari reached out and touched the statue's hand. For a moment, it glowed red. Then, from behind, a deep voice echoed through the hall. Well, well, the marked girl and her human pet. They turned. A tall figure stepped out of the shadows, armor black as night, eyes silver. Liari took a step back. Who are you? She asked. The figure grinned. I'm the one sent to erase mistakes like you. The blood code. The hall grew silent. The man in black armor took slow, heavy steps toward Liari and Captain Darren. His boots echoed across the stone floor, and with each step, the red glow of Liari's mark burned brighter. Darren stepped in front of her, raising his weapon. Back away, he warned. The figure smiled beneath his cracked helmet, still playing the guardian human. He raised a metal hand. She's not yours to protect. Liari's voice was calm but firm. Who are you? I am called Veros, he replied, and I was made to ensure the blood code is never awakened. You were supposed to die before the mark matured. She clenched her fists. Why? Veros tilted his head. Because if you live, everything changes. Without warning, he raised his arm and fired a pulse of dark energy. Darren shoved Liari to the side and took the hit full on. He flew back and crashed against a wall. Darren, Liari cried, running to him. I'm fine, he coughed, blood at his lip. But you need to run. No, she said, standing up. Not anymore. The mark on her back surged with power. Red energy circled her arms like ribbons. She raised her hand, and the stone beneath Veros's feet cracked. The ground pushed him back with a force even he hadn't expected. He stared at her, surprised. So, the code has begun to awaken. Before he could strike again, the walls began to shake. Lights flickered. From above, a loud voice boomed. Security breach detected. Lockdown initiated. Ancient defense systems powered on. Lasers targeted Veros. He disappeared in a flash of smoke. Darren grabbed Liari's hand, breathing hard. He'll be back. He's one of them, part of the ones who erased the past. They made their way deeper into the tower. Inside a hidden room, Darren activated an old console. A pod rose from the floor, glowing blue. This is what I came here to find, he said. A blood scanner. Liari stared. What does it do? It reads your DNA. It tells us what you really are. She hesitated, then stepped inside the scanner. The machine lit up. Lines of code ran across the screen. The lights flickered. Then a hologram appeared. A voice spoke. Subject. Hybrid class. Human Salaran genome. Blood code active. Compatibility. 99.8%. Status. Chosen. Liari blinked. I'm human. Partly, Darren said. Your ancestors were from both races, but your body is the first in centuries to carry the blood code, a rare genetic signal designed to awaken old technology, heal advanced diseases, and unlock forgotten powers. So that's why my people called me Impure, she whispered. Not because I'm broken, but because I'm different. Different, Darren said, and dangerous to those in power. She stepped out of the scanner. Her eyes were sharper now, her breath deeper. She felt stronger, more aware. Suddenly, her vision blurred. She saw flashes, images that weren't hers. A giant battlefield, humans and Celarans fighting together. A woman with the same mark, standing at the center. Then darkness. She fell. Darren caught her. What did you see? He asked. A memory, she said, but not mine. Someone else's, someone with the mark, someone who led armies. Your past is more than blood, he said. It's legacy. Outside, the sky cracked with thunder. The tower shook again. Veros was returning. And this time, he wasn't alone. From the upper levels, Darren pulled Lyari into a side chamber. Inside were weapons, armor, and something else. A box sealed with both human and Salaran writing. Darren opened it slowly. Inside was a thin silver blade and a set of armor marked with the same red symbol Lyari carried. This was made for the one who bears the code, he said. It hasn't been worn for 100 years. Lyari reached for the armor. As her fingers touched it, it glowed softly, like it recognized her. She put it on. It fit like it had waited just for her. Darren stared in awe. You look like a legend. She tightened the straps and picked up the blade. I'm not a legend, she said. I'm the girl they left in the snow. But now, I'm coming back. Above them, loud footsteps echoed. Dozens of soldiers entered the tower, drones, enforcers, and Veros at the front. He pointed at Lyari. Kill the human. Bring her to me. Darren raised his gun. Lyari raised her blade. You'll have to go through both of us, she said. The room exploded into battle. Laser fire lit the walls. Lyari moved faster than she ever had. Her blade danced through the air, guided by something ancient. She wasn't just fighting. She was remembering. She ducked, rolled, and slashed through metal enemies like they were paper. Darren held the line beside her. But Veros was powerful. When he struck, the entire tower shook. You're still just a girl, he hissed, grabbing her arm. Lyari looked him in the eyes, the mark on her back shining like a star. No, she said. I'm the future. A final blast of red energy burst from her, sending Veros flying across the hall. He crashed into the wall and vanished in a cloud of smoke and sparks. Silence. Darren lowered his weapon. You okay? Lyari nodded, breathing hard. I don't think I'm scared anymore. He smiled. Good, because this is only the beginning. War cries. For the first time in her life, Lyari felt power, not just in her body, but in her spirit. She was no longer hiding, no longer running. The red mark that once made her an outcast now glowed with purpose, wrapped in silver armor, with a blade that pulsed in her hand like it had a heartbeat of its own. She and Captain Darren stood in the ruins of the ancient tower, surrounded by broken machines and scattered metal from the battle. The enemy had retreated, for now, but they both knew peace wouldn't last. Darren looked at the sky. Storm clouds had gathered again, but this time, they weren't just from the weather. They're preparing for war, he said quietly. Your people, and mine. Lyari sat on a stone bench, eyes focused on the horizon. Because of me, she whispered. Darren shook his head. Because of fear, you just exposed the truth. And when people are scared of the truth, they fight it. She sighed. I don't want war. You may not have a choice. Suddenly, a sharp beep came from Darren's wrist device. He pressed a button. A hologram appeared, a human woman with short hair and a scar across her face. Captain Darren, respond. "This is Commander Voss. Your signal is active. You're alive." Darren replied quickly, "Alive, and not alone. The marked one is with me. The beacon is active." The woman's eyes widened. "Copy that. Extraction team en route. We're bringing the fleet." The hologram vanished. Liari turned to him. "You called more humans. They need to see you," he said. "They need to know who you are and what you carry." Liari's heart beat faster. "And what about my people? The ones who called me impure? The ones who sent pharaohs?" "They're already moving," Darren said. "You're no longer a secret. You're a threat." Hours later, Liari and Darren stood on a ridge overlooking the Valley of Echoes, a sacred ground once used for peace talks between Exalerans and humans, long before everything fell apart. But now that valley was full of movement, ships landing, armies gathering, banners raised. One side carried the blue and silver flags of the human colonies. The other side, the black and gold of the high caste, Liari's old rulers. "I recognize them," Liari said. "That's the High Guard, the same ones who exiled me." From the shadows of the trees, a soft voice spoke. "You're not the only one they cast away." They turned. Out stepped a figure, tall, wearing worn armor and a red scarf. His face was part human, part Salaran. Behind him came a dozen others, all with strange marks, glowing faintly. Liari's eyes widened. "You're like me." The man nodded. "We're the marked forgotten. They threw us out years ago, said we were mistakes. But we survived. We waited." Darren stepped forward. "Then it's time to stop waiting." The man pointed at Liari. "She's the one, isn't she? The beacon's chosen." Darren nodded. "She's the bridge, the key, but she can't do it alone." The forgotten all knelt silently before her. Liari stared at them. For the first time, she saw her reflection, not in a mirror, but in others like her. Broken, exiled, but alive. She took a breath. "I don't want to lead an army," she said honestly. "But if standing up means no more children are called impure, then I will fight." The wind picked up. In the distance, both the human and alien forces began to march. The valley echoed with the sound of machines, armor, and war drums. Darren handed her a small chip. "This has a message from your ancestors, a truth hidden for centuries. If you can deliver it to both sides before the battle, maybe, just maybe, we can stop this." She looked at the chip, then at the sky. Darkness was falling. Suddenly, an explosion rocked the ridge. A blast of fire rose from the valley. One of the human ships had been hit. "They've started early," Darren said, grabbing her arm. "They're not waiting for peace." From above, a massive transport ship descended, opening a hatch. Commander Voss's voice came through the comm. "Get her here now. We have to broadcast the message." But at the same moment, more enemy ships arrived from the east. Veros returned, this time leading an elite group of Salaran enforcers in jet-black armor. His voice echoed across the valley. "Bring me the girl. Alive. No mercy for the rest." Liari looked around. At Darren, at the forgotten, at the valley below. Two armies, two worlds, one truth. Her heart raced. She gripped her blade tighter. "I don't want war," she said again. "But if it's the only way to be heard." She stepped forward, her armor glowing red in the dark. "Then let them hear me loud." Darren smiled beside her. "You're ready." Above them, the sky split open with the roar of ships, fire, and fury. And from the center of it all, one voice began to rise. Liari's, the hidden army. Smoke danced across the battlefield. The valley burned behind them, ships destroyed, soldiers scattered, and the air thick with dust and screams. But high above it all, in the ancient cliffs of the northern ridge, Liari, Darren, and the remaining marked forgotten moved quickly, guided by old paths lost to time. Their destination, a hidden mountain chamber known only in whispers. Vault 9. Are you sure it's real? Darren asked, scanning for enemies. The leader of the Forgotten nodded. It was a rumor, until one of us found it years ago. We kept it secret, safe, waiting for the right one to awaken it. They stopped in front of a tall stone door, covered in vines and old symbols. The ground trembled as the war below grew louder. Liari stepped forward. Her hand reached out. The red mark on her back pulsed, and the door responded. With a low groan, the stone slid open. A soft, ancient voice spoke from within. Welcome, Heir of the Code. They entered. Inside, the chamber was massive. Glowing crystals lit the ceiling. Along the walls stood hundreds of armored suits. Old, powerful, and untouched. Some still held weapons. Others had strange tech embedded in their chests. In the center of the room, a large circular device floated silently. A beacon core, brighter than the one Liari had seen before. Liari's breath caught. This is an army. Darren stared in awe. No, this is a promise, waiting to be kept. One of the Forgotten stepped toward the suits. These warriors were built from both human and Salaran minds. During the last alliance, they were shut down when the war began, locked away by traitors who feared what peace would cost them. Liari walked slowly through the rows of ancient armor. As she passed, lights began to flicker on. Each suit responded to her presence, waking from sleep. She stopped at the beacon core. What is this place really? She asked. The chamber's AI responded with a soft chime. Vault 9, home of the Bonded Legion, awaiting activation by a genetic heir of the beacon line. Darren turned to Liari. It's you. Only you. Her hand touched the beacon core. A shock of red light surged across the room. One by one, the armored suits straightened, not machines, but soldiers in stasis, a sleeping army of half-bloods, marked ones like her. The platform lit up, and a recording began. A woman's voice, gentle, firm, and familiar. If you hear this, you are the last. I was Liari of the first mark. I saw peace, and I saw it fall. They erased our kind to keep their power. But one day, a new marked one would rise, and she would awaken the bonded. Liari's eyes filled with tears. This wasn't just about her. It never was. It was about all of them. The outcasts, the forgotten, the erased. I'm not the first Liari, she whispered. Darren nodded. You're the next. Suddenly, one of the suits opened. A tall warrior stepped out, alive. His eyes glowed red, but they were kind. He kneeled. Commander, orders. Liari looked at the others, still waking. Her hands trembled. I'm not a commander. Yes, you are, Darren said softly. Because they believe in you. And so do I. Outside, the ground shook again. Veros's voice echoed from a distant speaker. Surrender the girl, or watch your world burn. Liari stood tall. We don't surrender. She turned to the army, over 100 now, fully awake, fully armed. We were hidden, she said, raising her voice, marked as impure, left to fade. But now, we rise, not for revenge, not for war, but for truth. The soldiers pounded their fists to their chests. A deep, unified sound shook the chamber. Liari looked at Darren. How long until Veros reaches the mountain? Minutes, he said. She nodded. Then we make our stand here, and we send a message they'll never forget. As the sun began to set, the mountain base came alive. The hidden army, the bonded, moved with perfect focus. Ancient weapons were powered, shields activated. Drones scanned the skies. Liari walked out to the cliff edge. Below her, Veros's ships approached like a swarm. He stepped forward, speaking through a loudspeaker. You can't win. You're a child with a gift you don't understand. Come down, and I'll spare your human friend. Liari didn't answer. Instead, she activated her beacon blade, now glowing brighter than ever. The air around her shimmered. Armor formed across her body. Stronger, sleeker, a crown-like shape folded across her head. She was no longer just the marked girl. She was the beacon. She lifted her hand. "Ready," she said. Darren stood beside her, his rifle locked in. The bonded raised their weapons. Veros fired the first shot, and the sky exploded into battle. Inside the chaos, Laari cut through the enemy lines like fire through dry grass. Her movements were sharper now, like someone was guiding her. Her blade wasn't just a weapon. It was an extension of her will. Veros fought like a monster, faster, darker, filled with hate. But Laari wasn't alone anymore. Darren covered her back. The bonded stood strong, even when the mountain cracked, even when the sky blew fire. In the heart of the storm, Laari and Veros clashed blade to blade. "You don't belong in this world," he growled. Laari's voice was calm, powerful. "I am this world, and I'm taking it back." With one final strike, she shattered his weapon and blasted him off the cliff. As silence fell, the beacon army stood victorious. For the first time, both sides saw her clearly, not as a mistake, but as a leader. The claim. The battle was over. The valley was quiet. The kind of quiet that comes only after thunder. The sky above the mountain was filled with smoke, ash, and fading stars. Fires flickered across the hills. The air smelled of metal, dust, and something old, something sacred. Laari stood at the edge of the cliff, armor cracked, blade still in her hand. Her body ached, her breath heavy, but her eyes were calm. Behind her stood the survivors, the bonded, her army of forgotten souls, now fully awakened. Darren, bruised and bleeding, stood just behind her, watching her with quiet pride. Below them, thousands of soldiers, human and Salaran, stared up from the battlefield, silent. They had seen it. They had seen her rise, seen her fight, seen her stand alone against Veros, and win. But it wasn't just power that had silenced the war. It was truth. The ancient message had been broadcast across both armies during the battle, the voice of the first Laari, revealing the lies of the High Caste, the cover-up of the Blood Code, and the forgotten alliance between humans and Celarans. The war hadn't been about purity. It had been about control, and the truth hit harder than any weapon. Laari stepped forward, activating her voice amplifier. Her words echoed through the valley. "I was called Impure," she said, "thrown out, hunted, lied to, just like many of you, but the mark on my back was never a curse." She paused, looking out at the mixed crowd below, soldiers who just hours ago had tried to kill each other. It was a link between two worlds, a bond made long ago, buried by those who feared what we could be together. Her voice grew stronger. "You were told I was dangerous. You were told I was wrong, but I'm still here. And now, you have a choice." She raised her blade. The red glow cast a soft light across the valley. "You can keep fighting. For flags, for lies, for power, or you can fight for something new, for something real." Silence. Then, a sound, a soft thud. One of the human commanders dropped his weapon. A moment later, a Xalaran warrior did the same. Then dozens more. Then hundreds. Darren whispered, "They're listening." Laari lowered her blade. "They're choosing." In the days that followed, the war ended, not with a treaty, not with a deal, but with a truth too big to ignore. The High Caste was dismantled. The marked ones, once hunted, became leaders. Histories were rewritten. Borders dissolved. New schools were built. Mixed blood was no longer a secret. It was honored. And in the center of it all was Laari. Not a queen, not a general, but a symbol. She refused titles. She refused statues. But she didn't refuse love. One evening, As the twin suns set behind the mountains, Layari stood near the river where the old ruins had been cleared. Darren walked up beside her. "They offered to name a city after you," he said with a smile. She rolled her eyes. "No thanks." He smirked. "I told them you'd say that." They stood in silence for a while. Then he turned to her, more serious now. "You save more than just lives," he said. "You saved us from ourselves." She looked at him, quiet. "I didn't do it alone." A breeze moved through the trees. Darren stepped closer. "You never will be alone again." He reached out, not to protect her, not to guide her, but to claim her, with the kind of respect that came from walking through fire together. She didn't flinch. She stepped into his arms. Not a warrior, not a weapon, but a woman who had rewritten the stars. In the final scene, we see children, human, Salaran, and mixed, playing beneath a giant tree in the valley. One of them points up at the sky. "Who's that?" he asks. Above them, carved into the stone wall of a nearby cliff, is a giant symbol, the red mark, glowing faintly. Another child replies, "That's Layari, the one they couldn't erase." Fade out.